Today I want to show you a very unique way to get rid of that really stubborn belly fat. If you're female or male, we're going to talk about the differences. I'm going to talk about if it's better to use exercise or diet or other techniques. But for most of you watching, this is probably new information that you've never heard before. So definitely take notes. One of the things that I think is very important before you jump into solving any problem is to really understand the problem a little bit more. So when we're dealing with belly fat, we're dealing with, there's different names for it: central obesity, visceral fat, abdominal obesity. There's a lot of different names for this belly fat. And so this type of fat is very different than your superficial fat. It's called subcutaneous, that's just underneath the skin. Belly fat or visceral fat is fat that is ectopic, which means it's outside the fat cell. The fat is in the organs, and it's especially in your liver. So in other words, if you have belly fat, you have liver fat. And it is essential to get rid of the fat off the liver to get rid of this midsection weight. Now, there's quite a few mistakes that people make when they're trying to deal with this. They're at the gym trying to do spot exercises where they're doing sit-ups and crunches for weeks, months, and they're not seeing any change. They go on a diet, and many times that won't work either, unless it targets the liver. So I'll just give you a little picture of what's happening here. So we have liver that is filling up with fat. It's spilling off into the midsection around the organs in your visceral. That's all the organs in the mid part of your belly. And this is called ectopic fat. And what's really going on behind the scenes is there's this hormone called insulin. And insulin is a fat storing hormone. It also prevents you from losing your fat. So there's a lot of insulin being pumped out by the pancreas, and then that's turning into insulin resistance, which makes it really hard to lose weight because the body is pumping out so much insulin. And that insulin communication is store fat, store fat, store fat. And then this ectopic fat basically creates insulin resistance. So it's a never-ending cycle. And of course, you may already know that carbohydrates and sugars and things like that increase insulin, but also there's something called gluconeogenesis. That's where your liver is making new sugar. And if you have insulin resistance, your liver will make sugar, not even from the sugar that you eat in the diet. It can actually be converting other things to sugar. And it's kind of a double-edged sword because you have your own liver making sugar, which is then converting into more fat and making more fat. So I need to kind of explain how to correct this. There are 6 things we're going to talk about. And one of the solutions is not to detoxify the liver. That is not going to work. And yes, exercise can help, but not as a direct way to burn off the fat. It's more to use up the energy, also to help your stress, and also to help you sleep better. Because not only is it the carbs that raise insulin, but also the stress activates a hormone called cortisol. And cortisol is a sugar hormone, and it will release sugar. In fact, it's called glucocorticoid. If you take a look at some of the synthetic versions of cortisol that they use as medications, like prednisone for all sorts of inflammatory conditions, if you look at the side effect, it's major weight gain, especially in your midsection. If you look up excessive production of cortisol, you will see a picture of someone's belly. Why? Because cortisol mobilizes different tissues and turns your muscles into fat. So let me just talk about this right now, reducing stress, but with more sleep through the type of exercise that I did a whole video on this, aerobic exercise. I don't know if you can see that. No, you can't see that. So I'm going to write down right here, aerobic. What is this? That's walks, long walks. Best way to reduce stress, or physical work around the house. Very, very important for reducing stress because it takes the mind off things. But you want low intensity, long duration walks. It's going to help not necessarily burn off the fat, but it's going to help burn off the adrenaline and the cortisol that's flowing through the body from the stress. Reducing stress is going to help you sleep. And it will burn off some calories as well. But let me just kind of talk about burning calories off. And what I mean by that, well, the energy factory of the body It's called the mitochondria right here, okay? And the purpose of the mitochondria is to take your calories and then turn it into chemical fuel called ATP. ATP is like the battery of the body, and so the mitochondria is the battery maker, okay? And what it's doing is it's extracting energy from food, and it's turning it into this right here, so then it can be used. What's interesting about this ATP is that it's not stored, okay? So you don't really have a lot of stored ATP at any one time, very small amount. So here's the thing you need to know. What can we do to increase more ATP production and burning? That's the question. Well, that relates to exercise. So exercise does have an important factor, especially if you understand that when you compare someone at rest versus when they're exercising, you can increase the production of ATP by 1,000 times by intense exercise. So I do recommend doing periodic intense exercise. It's called high intensity interval training with the walking for various reasons. One is to start using up some of this energy right here. We want to use up the fat right here, right? And we want to add the right type of exercise. And we want to do high intensity, full body type exercise. You can do sprinting up a hill. You can do spin bike. You can do weights, any type of exercise that will increase a great amount of demand for energy. And then that's going to tap into your reserve, which is the midsection fat over here. A couple things you need to know about exercise. You want to make sure you don't overtrain, because if you overtrain, it's going to increase stress. So it's very, very important to exercise like high intensity, maybe 3 times a week, maybe 2 times a week. Recently, I am running up hills for exercise, like really major intense hill running. I think I'll end up doing it maybe twice a week, not 3 times a week, because my body doesn't recover. And I do have a machine or a test to determine that. That's going to be another video. But the point is that it's very easy to overtrain. I will get much better results if I let my body rest in between this high intensity exercise. And plus, the high intensity exercise will stimulate growth hormone, which is the main fat burning hormone, but only if you are sleeping. Okay, so I should put down right here. Wait, you can't see that. Sleep. Okay, sleep to get more. Well, you can't even see that, right? Let's put it right here. Okay, sleep. So that's really important to help with the stress. Stress and sleep are in the same category. It's gonna really help you, because it's kind of like a foundational thing. If you're not sleeping because you're stressed out, good luck with losing weight. Why? Because the cortisol prevents you from tapping into this fat, and especially if you're trying to get rid of the midsection. Very important, and this is why I'm spending a bit more time on it. All right, number 2. What's happening in your liver is the liver is fatty, and so it's spilling off. So we must use up the fat on your liver, okay? Now, there's 2 things that you can do to get yourself into what's called ketosis, which is a type of fat burning, right? Because when your body burns fat, or when you eat fat, that's mobilized into a more easily packaged type of energy called ketones. That's why your body makes ketones. It can also run on fat fuel as well, but ketones are like a better packaged fat fuel. So there's 2 sources of ketones. One is your own fat, and number 2 is the dietary fat. And here's the thing, to be able to tap into either one of these fats, you must reduce your carbs, right? So the reduction of carbs is important, and you probably already know that. We must reduce the carbs, but reducing the carbs will force your body to either burn fat from the calories that you eat or your own fat. Now, let's talk about, do we want to burn calories from the fat that you eat? Or do we want to burn your own stored fat? Well, that's an easy question. We want to burn our own stored fat. So yes, it is true that the amount of calories of fat on the ketogenic diet are much higher than other diets. But if you are trying to lose weight in your midsection, adding a lot more dietary fat is not going to help you. So I'm going to recommend, especially for this situation, is not to start adding additional fat. Don't go low fat, but don't add a lot of fat. Don't add the MCT oil. Don't add the keto bombs and desserts. Just don't do that, because your body's going to tap into that as fuel and not your own fat. Now, I do recommend for some people to eat more fat to help them be more satisfied so they can actually go longer with intermittent fasting in the beginning of a program. But if we're trying to quickly and rapidly get rid of this midsection fat, you don't want to add a lot of fat to your diet unless you want to maintain your weight. So we want to, right here, reduce dietary fat, okay? But not to the point of going low fat. So don't go below like 75 grams of fat per day. I would just consume your fat from the normal proteins in nature that just come with the fat, whether it's meat, eggs, and things like that. Don't go low fat. Don't eat the egg whites alone. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to force your body to tap into mainly your own fat, okay? So that's number 3. Number 4, the real problem that you have is in the liver, okay? Because the liver is the organ that is overfilled with fat and it's spilling off into the abdominal area. So in other words, you're going to have to do things to get this fat off the liver and heal it and make it really healthy. If it was healthy, chances are it can deal with all this extra fat and not have so much insulin resistance, okay? Because insulin resistance is a condition that it's like a pre-diabetic condition, metabolic syndrome. You have a lot of issues with that, and you're definitely going to have a lot more insulin and a lot more fat in the midsection. So anything we can do for the liver is going to be very, very important. So what can we do for the liver? Well, we already lowered the carbs, and some people can actually lose 50% of their fat off their liver within 2 weeks getting on the low carb diet. But there are 3 important things that you can take to supplement and help heal the liver. The one is apple cider vinegar. That greatly improves insulin. It greatly helps a fatty liver. It greatly makes insulin more sensitive to allow the insulin to work better in the body. So what you do is you take a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, put it in 12 ounces of water. I like to put lemon in there too, and maybe some electrolytes. And I'll drink that once, twice, or even 3 times a day. Very significant changes can occur if you do that. The type of apple cider vinegar I use is from Fairchild's, not Bragg's, because they don't dilute it. It's nice and strong, and it's a really good company. The second very important supplement is called milk thistle. Milk thistle is amazing. It's that prickly plant that has those purple flowers that then turn into these white little things at the end of a seed that look like parachutes. And so the wind blows, you can see them all around in the fields where I live anyway. And they're all over the place. Milk thistle is a very unique plant, and you can get milk thistle seeds in tablet form. What's so unique about it? It has super high-end liver protecting properties that basically it's like the antidote to a snake poisoning or a mushroom poison. The most deadly mushroom is called the death cap mushroom. I mean, the antidote is milk thistle. I mean, it's quite amazing. Tylenol poisoning, people that drink alcohol, this can help protect the liver, but it's also really important for a fatty liver, in correcting a fatty liver, as well as reducing inflammation on the liver, and also protecting the liver from getting cirrhosis, and helping with this gluconeogenesis issue where your liver is producing a lot more sugar because it has insulin resistance. So it helps with a lot of different aspects of that liver, as well as helping with midsection weight. And I put some research down below. You can check it out. Okay, so milk thistle is a given. The third thing is berberine. And there's several studies that show combining berberine with milk thistle is a good idea. Berberine is kind of, I look at it like a natural metformin without the side effects. But of course, I'm not making that claim. And also, I don't want to make any claims on milk thistle, okay? So all I can say is you can read the research, and it's pretty amazing with the research that's done on mice. So, you can apply it to humans if you want, but the point is that if it works on mice, maybe it can work on you. But berberine is a really good one with the milk thistle. It's good for diabetics and pre-diabetics, and it helps the liver with this extra gluconeogenesis. One thing I want to mention about people trying to lose weight, I watch people through the year go through this cycle, and it's like this pattern. They just go crazy between Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's, and then they start all over again, and they go through this New Year's resolution. I think emotions and intelligence are inverted. People get wrapped up in emotions at social activities, birthday parties, events, holidays, going out to dinner with friends. And I watch this, and the intelligence or the IQ with foods goes out the window. People don't really learn from their mistakes, like they keep going in these same patterns over and over and over again because they're eating things that they know are bad for the liver, and they're drinking alcohol that they know is bad for the liver, but they still do it because they're wrapped up in the emotion. So I'm going to recommend that you step back for a second and really reevaluate your environment and the people around you, and just don't get in those situations. Change the habits. In a person with belly fat, you have to realize that's not just a minor thing. It's pathological. It's disease creating. It's creating inflammation. It's creating problems in your liver. You might not see it inside, but it's not a healthy state. And so usually a person with belly fat doesn't have the luxury of continuing these bad habits over again because they're just doing the wrong things. They must focus on changing their habits. That's the most important thing they need to focus on because they're in this habit and they're going through the cycle. But the point is, for me, I had to hit bottom before I made changes. I was the worst. I ate the worst food all the way up until my late 20s. I mean, I just wouldn't eat a little junk food. I would eat a tremendous amount of junk food, pots of coffee, pots of chocolate. I would never eat anything like vegetables or celery, any of that stuff. I only ate pure junk food for so many years. I had to hit bottom. And even when I hit bottom, it took me many years to feel terrible before I said, it's not worth it anymore. So now my liver is like a barometer. If I go off the program, like my body does not react well. If I were to drink alcohol, I just would want to go to sleep. I think that's a good thing because I never in a million years would have gotten into health if I didn't have these health problems. So I have a lot of personal experience doing this, and I do know I used to get wrapped up in the emotion of it, and I've corrected that. Okay. But for some people, it takes them a bit longer before they learn from their mistakes. And then number 5 is OMAD. 1 meal a day, intermittent fasting. If this doesn't happen right here, if a person still eats frequently and snacks, I don't think these other things are going to work. This is probably one of the most important things right here. Actually, it's the most important thing because when you don't eat, you force your body to live off its fat reserves. So it's like a pure fat burning experience. You can get into deep ketosis if you combine low carb OMAD with exercise. And when I say OMAD, you don't have to start off with 1 meal a day. You can start off with 2 meals a day, but try to keep the time close, like maybe have a late lunch, early dinner. And if you really want to take it to the next level, just don't eat if you're not hungry, which means you might go 1 meal every other day, and you're going to tap into, like a vacuum, all this fat off your liver and pull it off. You'll see some very quick changes. Very, very important. And that is the way to really speed everything up. But this is like a foundational thing. And what's cool about it is when you don't eat, your body is eating. So you're not starving it. You're actually creating a tremendous amount of health by not eating from many different angles, especially just stripping off all this fat off of your liver. And just to go back to this low carb thing, the ketogenic diet, I didn't talk about what to eat, right? You can find that in my video. I'll put it down below. But also OMAD, when you eat certain foods, what type of foods would be good for correcting this situation. And there's a couple interesting nutrients that I want to share with you. One is creatine, and the other is carnosine. And both of those can help you with a fatty liver. Both of those can help you with increasing more energy to exercise. Both of those can help you mobilize the fat through the mitochondria down here and produce more ATP efficiently. And those two compounds, creatine and carnosine, are the highest in like red meat. So I would highly recommend doing red meat several times a week, or hamburger, things like that from a quality source, grass-fed, grass-finished red meat or a steak, because you have a lot of factors in there. You have a lot of nutrients, there's virtually no carbs, and you have that carnosine and creatine that can help you. And I'll put the studies down below. I don't even think you need to take them as a supplements. Just get it from red meat. All right, number 6, it's staying very aware, okay, and not slipping into this emotional thing that people go through these different holidays, staying very aware of what works, what doesn't work, of your past mistakes, and just don't keep making them. So keep your awareness up and kind of like just be in the present, right? And so you don't kind of slide into this thing. I think this is very, very important too, because this will help you be consistent, right? Because you're going to do all these things, it's going to work, and then you want to just keep building on your successes. So what I like to do is just each day get better and better and better. Okay, you screw up, good. Then correct it, do better, and keep implementing the things that worked, and then get rid of the things that don't work. Okay, so I think this is going to be important too, because how many people just either forget what they did or just ignore it? They just slide into this whole thing, which the logic goes out the window, and so does their health. So anyway, I think these actions can really take you to the next level if you want to get rid of your belly fat, or whatever you want to call it, central obesity, visceral fat, or whatever. Now, if you want special content that is not on YouTube, you should go to my site, drberg.com. I'll put a link down below, and sign up on my newsletter, because I'm going to be releasing some really great things that you're not going to be able to find on YouTube, because they're kind of filtering out certain things. So anyway, click the link down below, get signed up, and I will see you on the other side.